Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Good morning, everybody. We had a little hiatus because I went away. And thanks for everybody for coming back. It's a big group. We're at 99 right now, live on Zoom. If you want to join us live at Zoom, you can do that. We have thousands that are others out there. Matter of fact, I was in Louisville, Kentucky, met tons of others. And I was in Memphis, Tennessee. There's others everywhere.
In Louisville, Kentucky?
Louisville, Kentucky. I went to Louisville and I went to Memphis, or Nashville. And there's lots of others in
Tell
Nashville.
me about Kentucky.
God, I'm drinking this morning. It's like sauerkraut juice.
What are you doing?
Kentucky? Well, Louisville, Kentucky is a place that they actually, it's the number one I actually know this, number one manufacturer of disco balls, and that's a true statement, and that's where the copyright for Happy Birthday.
Raghunath, I wasn't asking for just any kind of trivia about Kentucky.
Tom Sawyer is from, supposedly from Kentucky. There's a Tom
I think they have a derby out there every once in a while. Yeah, okay.
Derby. What else do you want to know about Kentucky?
I was wondering about, you're saying all these people that are listening to the show out there in Kentucky. Ooh, tell me about them.
Oh, they're just great people. Well, Cindy Lunsford, she's one of our regular others. It's interesting. If you're not on Zoom, we don't even know you, but I know her. They're these others, because you don't see them regularly. They're there listening every day. So she just, she's like a big yoga teacher, and her studio got closed down due to COVID. But she's a great soul, and she's a aspiring, devotee like all of us, and she's trying to slug it out. She has no association, so she takes shelter of the podcast, which is, I think, the greatest thing. The podcast is we all live all over the place, but we're coming together as a sangha and regularly hearing every day, and it's changing us. And this is how you change. You do the same thing every day, and so by hearing the Bhagavatam every day, which is what the Bhagavatam itself says to do, it starts to change our thinking. Even though I fight it, because I'm attached to things of the material world, by hearing it every day, it's starting to loosen the noose of materialism. You like that? The noose of materialism.
Well, what you're talking about right now, today's verses are right on that subject. Right on it.
All right. Well, it's perfect. And I just want to give a shout out. Look at this great book I got. It Starts with Fruit. Jordan Champagne. It's a whole book. One of our others also out there from Northern California. Her and her husband have a farm. She's got this incredible cookbook on simple techniques and delicious recipes for jams, marmalades, and preserves. Yeah. And she sent us some jelly. And I'm going to give some to you, too.
She sent me some also. I should have told you.
I'm going to keep all those myself. I offered them on my altar yesterday. And I was like, man, I got to give half of these to Kaustubha.
But that'll right. She sent that to the Bhakti Center. So they're holding it there for me, but I wanted to offer thanks for that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it.
Well, I'm going to pass this over to Mara because I will never make jelly probably, but I said I'll give you the book if you make me jelly, Mara.
Seems like a fair deal.
trade.
Good idea.
I do love jelly, that's for sure. Okay, let's dive. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is, I get this wrong every time, is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. By the way, people, if anything like resonates with you today, something we said, something Kaustubha says, something in our reading, any nugget of wisdom, write it down. You can write it right on your phone, take a screenshot of it and share it, and tag Wisdom of the Sages. You can tag me, Raghunath Yogi, and then we'll reshare it, because you never know who might need the message that you hear. Sometimes I even like, wow, that's important. I forgot that. So write it down on your phone, repost it, tag us in it, and we'll send it out as well. That's our new little thing we're starting.
All right.
We got to think of a clever name for that.
We don't have to. But
Spread it. Spread it. Spread it like jam. Okay. Hey, by the way, I also want to mention we're going to Cali, Colombia. If this lockdown thing allows us, we're going to Cali, Colombia. And it's happening somehow. I'm hoping it's happening because I got to get out. The gray skies are getting me gray. But that is January 19th. If you're interested, go to my website, raghunath.yoga, and click on the Wisdom of the Sages tab for more info. Okay, my friend, we are in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, new chapter today.
New
Questions
chapter.
by King Parikshit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how we evolve. We were talking about how old is the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam's ancient, but it's older than the old. Because these ancient literatures themselves speak of yoga always existing. What? Like, when did yoga start? 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago? Even the ancient books themselves say it's an eternal practice. It's a practice of a certain demographic of jivas, of spirit souls, who feel like there's got to be more to this world than just eating and sleeping and mating and defending. There's got to be more. So within the masses, there's a few. And those few are thinking, what is life about? Why am I working so hard? And so the Bhagavatam speaks. There's always been that, ever. So 5,000 years ago when the book was compiled, it's speaking of these people, this demographic of people that have been searching forever. And you know what? It keeps going back, and it will keep going forward. Because there'll always be people satisfied with the status quo, and there'll always be people who feel like life is more. And truthfully, the questions and answers we do on every Saturday is truthfully a continuation of the Bhagavatam. So if you're new to this book, you'll see that it begins with the questions and answers. What do you call that, Kaustubha? Level 1? You have a special...
level 1, you mean where the sages are asking Sutta Goswami questions? It's level 1.
Yeah, so it starts off there. The sages, all these very evolved sages are asking Sutta Goswami a question. And then Sutta Goswami is telling stories that have happened in the past. Oh, that's a good question. That reminds me of when this person asked this great sage that question. And so we're lost in stories and stories and stories and stories. And Kaustubha's job is to pull us back, help us focus, okay, where are we at? But it's basically these questions have been asked forever, and they continue to be asked. And it's the hearing, and the speaking of these transcendental questions and answers that help us on our path.
So we're on level 2 here. No.
We're on level 2 now.
Okay. So the sages, the Naimisharanyas, they ask questions to Sutta Goswami. That's level 1. Sutta Goswami then refers to the conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami on the bank of the river as Maharaj Parikshit is destined to die in 7 days.
Yeah. By the way, you can still visit Naimisharanya, where the sages were. That's a great thing when you read the Bhagavatam, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. You can still go to all these places. They're still there. They're still holy places. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. And there's still people just like worshiping the way they worship there. And
Here in Bhagavatam.
yeah. And reading the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Okay. We should do a Wisdom of the Sages live at Naimisharanya. Wouldn't that be great? Way to
We've got to do it.
Naimisharanya.
Yeah. It should not should we actually should do that.
Yeah, and bring jelly.
Okay.
Bring jelly. Okay. King Parikshit inquired from this text 1, chapter 8, 2nd canto. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak?
Yeah. So the last chapter was Brahma instructing Narada about Lord Vishnu, Krishna, and all the incarnations and so on. So now Narada is going to take that message and bring it all around the universe, like literally, right, traveling around the universe. And so this question, in one sense, it opens up for the next, 10 cantos, throughout Bhagavatam, thousands and thousands, but many of them are going to be Narada instructing different people. He's going to instruct Dhruva. He's going to, Prahlad, so many different Yudhishthira, so many different people he's going to instruct. We're going to hear about that. And it stems from this question.
The king said, I wish to know. Narrations concerning the Lord, who possesses wonderful potencies, are certainly auspicious for living beings in all planets. O greatly fortunate Sukadeva Goswami, please continue narrating the Srimad-Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body.
That's a great verse, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this is describing yoga, right? In other words, controlling how to control the mind. And he's saying that, and this is where we got to, the way that yoga has become understood or misunderstood, what it really means and what it's really all about. It's, and of course it has a lot to do with asana or even meditation, like our conceptions of what meditation is. Yoga means that I'm going to deal with my mind. And here we have these super great authorities on yoga. And, Shukadeva Goswami, he's like the ultimate yogi, right? He's wandering naked, super transcendental yogi that's being respected by all the sages, even though he's just like a young man. And then you have Maharaj Parikshit, who was just like this super qualified person, like a ruler, like, just a man that was lived dharma like incredibly deeply and took on incredible responsibilities, but had always connected as a yoga path. Like his social responsibilities were always performed as a yoga path. Yeah. And now he's, super serious and focused now with 7 days left to live, speaking to this yogi. And he's getting it, that this yoga is how he has to focus right now. So he says, keep speaking Bhagavatam to me. Keep speaking, these messages, stories, philosophy, about truth, about God, about truth, because then I can place my mind upon that supreme soul, Lord Krishna. And when I do that, it's said like Krishna is like the sun, what is it, Krishna Surya Sama, that it's very powerful and enlightening and purifying. And so by you speaking this message, I can place my mind on it easily. And it becomes a very powerful and effective form of yoga.
There's no economic strata you have to be at to be in bhakti. And here is like, Kaustubha and me also, it's like we know so many people who are like incredibly wealthy, incredibly like materially sophisticated, but they have this special yogi's bhakti heart, right? It's not just like we're disenfranchised, going to travel the world, I'm going to go to Bali, I'm going to do some yoga, I'm going to do a 200-hour, it's going to be great, we're going to sit on the beach all day. It's not yoga's not just like that. It's a whole spectrum of people, but it means their mind and their focus and their intelligence and their offering of their life is to Krishna or to Bhagavan. And they're connected that way. It's got not a material position. It's got nothing to do with what we have. We always say it's got to do with what you do with what you have. And it's that focus and that offering. So King Parikshit has everything. He's one of the haves of this world. But he's not using his stuff for himself.
He just walked away from it all.
Yeah, he's ready to walk away from it all. He's using everything he has, even his intelligence and his managing ability, in service. And this is another big place the Bhagavatam goes. How can I use everything that I have? All my great qualities that I was born with. We all have some great quality. First of all, what is my great quality? What was I born with? And why am I trying to hide some of my great qualities? Why not bring them to the front and center? And how can I use this as an offering? And that's one of like the little tricks of life. Realizing what you have and offering it back in service instead of in service of our ego. And Maharaj Parikshit is such a beautiful example of this.
Now you're talking about the heart. You know, these next verses, like I said, we read these next 3 verses and then we can go back and dip into some of the commentaries. But these are some of my favorite verses in Bhagavatam. And what was it, about a year and a half ago, right when, when we had Leela Vilasini on the other day, we interviewed her. And you're saying how her just like getting on your case and everybody's case, why aren't you reading Bhagavatam? Why aren't you reading Bhagavatam? And so that was kind of planted in you. And then you asked me, what should I do? I want to do something online every day. And I suggested reading Bhagavatam because my wife, Gita Priya, and I were reading Bhagavatam every day together. And we were reading 80 verses, right? That was like our standard. And we were getting such inspiration. It was like, it was just like, people want to have some kind of deep yoga practice or deeper spiritual practice. And we were just realizing, all along, this is what we're supposed to be doing, but we're just neglecting it, like doing it regularly, right? Like seriously reading Bhagavatam every day, and making sure that you get a good dose of it. And so we were reading it daily and feeling really inspired. And at that time, this was like, March, April, May, like last year. I was just telling it to so many different people. I was saying, it's so easy if you just, even if you don't have to read all the commentaries because then you miss out on the storyline, So just read the verses and dip into a commentary here or there. I was saying you do that, even if you spend 20 minutes a day, you read the whole Bhagavatam in like a year, but you get such powerful inspiration from it. And I was telling that to so many people and they're like, I'm doing it. And people are catching on to it. And it was these verses I used to share with people a lot that we're about to read right now to kind of help inspire them to do it, because it's like right here it said Maharaj Parikshit is going to tell us just exactly how the process works right now.
I like how Maharaj Parikshit says in verse 2, the possesses, by reading this Bhagavatam, it possesses wonderful potencies, and they're certainly auspicious for all living beings in all planets.
Yeah.
Can you imagine people on other planets like, the Bhagavatam?
Well, that's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on.
The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, enters into the heart.
Hold it. You missed X4.
Persons who hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly are always taking the matter very seriously. Persons who hear Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead manifested in their hearts within a short time.
Now, this is really big stuff.
Isn't that great news?
In a short time.
That's like great news.
Yeah.
We should all be excited about that.
And not only that, in one sense, this, and we're going to read.
It works, right?
It works. And not only does it work, like what is it working to do? Because we can look at like spirituality or yoga or religion, and we could identify a goal. And even if you're practicing bhakti, we might conceive of that goal as like, I want to return, like I want to leave the world that I'm in now and return to like the spiritual world, or like a Krishna might say, I want to go to heaven when I die, and so on.
Mm.
But I feel that the way that it's defined here is a really good way to focus, is that I want God to be manifested within my heart, right? Like whether I'm here or there or anywhere, right? Wherever I may be within the unlimited universes, within the material world, within the spiritual world, within heaven, within hell, whatever it is, right here, as soon as possible, I would like to have God manifest in my heart. In other words, that not only does that become the focus of my attention and my affection, but that becomes so real that it's almost unmistakable in my own like daily consciousness, and unmistakable for the people that meet me, that person's connected to something really special. There's something special is going on with that person because they have really God manifest in their heart in a very dynamic way, in a very powerful way. So it's saying here again in this verse, it defines that Bhagavatam is like the medicine, that's the method. And then it describes, along with that prescription, how one is meant to approach Bhagavatam. That it's done nityam, regularly. And shraddhaya, generally we translate that word shraddha as faith. Prabhupada here says very seriously, or in the word for word, he says in earnestness. Right, in earnestness. So if we read this Bhagavatam regularly, and that really means daily, which we're all doing here, and with earnestness, and I looked up the word earnest. Could you define the word earnest, Raghu? Any idea?
Earnest?
Earnest.
Earnest means with all integrity or sincerity.
Yeah, exactly.
Or sobriety.
Yeah, the definition was sincere and intense conviction.
Okay, right. I like that better, actually.
Well, no, I mean, you got sincerity. I think sincerity is really what it's all about, but a certain intensity too, right? That earnestness. I'm focusing on this, right? I'm going to really focus on this. I'm going to take it seriously. I'm going to hear what it has to say.
We're going to play Trivia Tuesday with English dictionary words.
We can do that. Yeah, we can do that. So so it says, and if we look at the Sanskrit to this verse, so it mentions, Shrinvata, Shraddhaya, Nityam. For those who hear this with earnestness, with shraddha, with faith, with sincerity, and nityam, regularly, what happens is that kalena nati dirghena, in a short time, right? In a very short time, Bhagavan vishate hridi, that Bhagavan becomes manifested in one's heart. That Krishna, it's already been established in the Bhagavad that Krishna is tu Bhagavan Svayam, that Krishna is Bhagavan.
Yeah,
Bhagavatam's already established that earlier, back in the first canto. So what it's saying is that Krishna becomes manifested in your heart, and that's interesting because it's already established that Lord Vishnu is in the heart of every living being, and that's Paramatma. But this doesn't say Paramatma Vishate Hridi. Paramatma becomes manifested in your heart. That's already there, but it says Bhagavan, right? We spoke about this. Was it with Edwin Bryant when we had him on a couple of weeks ago? That there's that the absolute truth, or God, manifests in three features. One is Brahman, like all pervasive.
God is everything.
Non-personal. God is everywhere. God is everything. Energy, right? And then there's Paramatma, the form of Vishnu within the heart of every living being. And then the third,
get it, right? God is in every heart of every being.
God is in my heart, yeah. And then there's Bhagavan, which means the person, the actual person that you can talk to and speak with and have a relationship with. That's the origin of it all. So here it says Bhagavan Vishate. It doesn't say Paramatma Vishate Hridi. It says Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. That Krishna, that ultimate, original, complete manifestation of God becomes manifest in your heart quickly. How? Regular and sincere hearing of the Bhagavatam, that this sage Vyasadeva performs such a service, right? By summarizing and gathering all the most essential spiritual information, putting it together in one work, and saying, if you just focus your mind on this work, hear it regularly, hear it with sincerity, the goal of all yoga will be met, and God will manifest quickly in your heart. In the next verse, it really has a poetic way of explaining it. It's a really beautiful verse.
By the
6:5.
way,
Yeah.
some people say, well, I'm not sure if it is doing that. If you've been listening to this for about a year or 6 months, the classes, Wisdom of the Sages, notice where you were 6 months ago or 3 months ago. It's slow. It's like you don't sometimes notice things, like you don't notice the hands of a clock moving. But if you look back to where you were 3 months ago, you'll be amazed at how much our consciousnesses have changed. You know? And you just have to take a step back. Okay, we're in text 5.
It's 5.
The sound incarnation. Like that?
I do like that. It
Incarnation.
manifests as sound.
As Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association. I've got beyond dust. I've got like grime.
Crud.
Cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. It is amazing, because this is the original contaminants of the jiva. The jiva is pure. We have a pure soul theology, right? We are the jiva's pure. We're not born sinful. We're not born broken. We're actually pure. We just get covered. We just get covered over, and this is the things. These are the original pesticides, herbicides, fungicides of the soul: lust, anger, hankering, and they just and it's like that beautiful soul is in this grotesque shell, and the hearing and
A lot
chanting,
of fungus.
a lot of fungus. I'm covered in fungus. I need a fungicide.
You need a fungicide.
Yeah. And by scraping it off, then you see there's this beautiful jewel there. It's already there. Sometimes we get a glimpse of our jewelness, and sometimes it gets covered over. And when we associate with people that are filled with lust and hankering and greed and just bad company. Wasn't there a band called Bad Company? Bad Company.
Till the day I die.
If you're hanging out with people with bad company, then what happens is we become more lusty, more angry, more hankering, more competitive, more neurotic, more fearful. And if you hang out with people who are really connecting on the core of what they are, then all of a sudden you start to recognize the core of what you are. Powerful stuff.
So it's a beautiful verse. Let's read this again.
Okay.
So Krishna himself in the form of sound, right? This is one of those things it's talking about spiritual energy. By material calculation, it doesn't make so much sense, but we're asked to try to expand our mind a bit, our imagination, and embrace the idea that a person could be manifest in the form of sound, that a transcendental person could have his spiritual reality entirely manifest in sound, so that when we hear Bhagavatam, we're directly associated with Krishna. And in this form of sound, he enters into the heart through the holes of the ears. It says he enters into the heart of the self-realized devotee, and then he sits there, right? He sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship. The word here is bhava, which refers to that loving relationship. The bhava sadaruham, the lotus of that relation. He sits right there on that lotus, right? And thus cleanses the dust of material association. All of the stuff I've been listening to, all the people I've been talking to, all the stuff I've been seeing, all of that stuff has created that crud you've been talking about, that fungus, right? It becomes the fungicide, such as lust, anger, hankering, right? This idea that I need this to be happy, I need that to be happy. And then I become angry when I don't get it. I become frustrated, angry, disturbed, all of that stuff. Hearing the Bhagavatam, Krishna's coming in, sitting on that heart, and he's
Scrubbing the fungus.
scrubbing that fungus out.
Fungus in my head.
and then this really great analogy is given. Thus it acts. Right here in this Bhagavatam, it will act like autumnal rains.
Mara, you went to
Mara's nodding.
That word.
Yeah.
Autumnal.
Yeah.
Do you have like autumnal recipes and stuff like that? Do you use that in your
I don't
business
use
stuff?
that word, but yeah, I do use autumnal recipes.
Okay. So it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. And this is something like in India, where they have monsoon, I think it becomes even more clear, like in the the rivers get all stirred up, and they get real muddy.
Yeah.
Right. During that rainy season, because it's just so rough and everything like that. If anyone's never been in the monsoon season in India, like it's intense. Right? Have you been there in that time?
Yep.
Have you been? Where were you?
Costa Rica in monsoon season too. It's just like monsoon is just like it's just raining.
Like I've been in Mumbai during monsoon,
and it's like loud.
It's like heavier rain than you've ever seen all day, every day. It's like crazy.
Bombay is Mumbai is a little especially crazy because
strong there.
It's a packed city, the streets flood. It's a little gross. They're having the giant Ganesh festival in the monsoon.
So then the rivers are like they're real muddy, like they're like pure mud, like you just look at, they're really dark. But then if a light rain falls on that, or if it falls on a pond that's been all stirred up, the weight of that rain just brings down all the mud in the water, and it becomes perfectly clear again. Right? And so it's saying that if we hear Bhagavatam, all that crud, all that fungus, all that's, all that material confusion, anger, hankering, lust, that's gonna come because we're just associating with the material world. That it's like these autumnal rains are just kind of like it falls into that and just pushes it all down, right? So that the mind becomes very clear, very pure. We can understand things as they are without the influence, right? When we have the influence of all that hankering and desire and anger, it confuses us and it confuses our perception of what's real and what's important and what's true. And so that regular hearing of Bhagavatam every day, let it rain, right? Let the Bhagavatam's message rain on one. Hear the stories, hear Shukadeva Goswami, hear Vidura, hear Yudhishthira, hear all of these narrations, purifying the mind day after day after day. And as you mentioned, if someone says, I don't really feel it working, then that means you have to go back to the previous verse and just work a little bit on the regularity and the sincerity, right? Yeah. And it'll take effect. Right.
If someone might pose the question.
What question?
You're talking about sound, like just by hearing this Krishna, the Bhagavatam is the incarnation of sound. How is that supposed to change us? But we understand like sound. If people gossip on a regular basis, or if people are always speaking ill, this is one sign of a person practicing bhakti. They don't speak ill of everybody. They reserve that. And even internally, they're clean from it. We don't want to hear people speaking ill of other people all the time. Whenever you get into a situation with gossip, nobody feels clean. You always feel like, I got to take a bath. And there's some people that you find, that's the only way they want to communicate with you. You ever have people like that? Like as soon as you see them, they're going to just start talking crap on somebody. So that concept of negative sound vibration is a real tangible thing. And in the same way of, like for example, look at Mara here. She does so much for the show. She's always she's
serving in so many ways.
To render service. She's got nothing bad to say about anybody. She's
never
very kind. But so by me saying that and appreciating Mara, I feel good saying that. Mara feels good hearing that. She's humble, but she feels good hearing that. And everybody else likes to hear you glorify someone else. So that positive, there's negative sound vibration, the gossip. There's positive sound vibration. And what we're getting to in the Bhagavatam is transcendent sound vibration. It's not of this world. And sound transforms us. When it comes to asana, pranayama, mantra, they're all transformative. Asana, you can, if you've never done anything with your body, do some asanas. You'll transform your body. More powerful than that is breath. You will transform your consciousness, the way you look at the world. It'll assist make your organs work. Breath is actually more powerful in transformation than asana. And mantra, the sounds that go on in the mind on a regular basis, even more powerful. And what we're doing is now we're starting to change our thoughts. We're trying to change the way we think. We're starting to change the way of who I identify myself with. And I start to change the way who I identify other people as. I used to think this was my friend, this was my enemy. She's like this and she's like that. But now I'm starting to see, oh, I'm looking under those layers. This person's a pure spirit soul. This person's a pure spirit soul. Even the people that aren't acting as pure spirit souls, I'm training myself to see them as pure spirit souls, and it's assisting them to change. It's quite powerful.
I'm with you.
And now here is Krishna in the form of sound.
Why don't we read a little of the commentary here? I'm going to go down a little bit in the commentary.
Okay.
Prabhupada writes, by sincere efforts, there's that sincere again, that earnestness, right? By sincere efforts to hear Srimad-Bhagavatam, one realizes their constitutional position with the Lord in the transcendental humor of servitude, friendship, parental affection, or conjugal love. Okay, so he's saying, this is where ultimately where it takes us is to a personal relationship with God. And by such self-realization, one becomes situated at once in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Not only were all the pure devotees like Narada self-realized souls, but they were engaged in the preaching work automatically by spiritual impetus. And thus they delivered many poor souls entangled in the material modes. So we're going to hear about that through it in our reading of Bhagavatam. Then he writes, they became so powerful, right? Wouldn't we all like to be a powerful spiritual influence in the world, right?
Yeah.
How did it happen? They became so powerful because they sincerely followed the Bhagavatam principles by regularly hearing and worshiping. By such actions, the accumulated material lusts, etc., become cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. He does the work, right? The Lord is always within the heart of the living being, but he becomes manifested by one's devotional service. See, we mentioned that this verse was saying that Krishna, the previous verse, that Krishna quickly becomes manifested within the heart, but it said Bhagavan, right? It didn't say Paramatma, but it said Bhagavan. Now, Paramatma, the Paramatma is like neutral, right? That's one of the features of that manifestation of God within the heart of every living being, not particularly favorable to one, and not so much to the other. And that's a beautiful quality, that we can see everyone equally. But Krishna, Bhagavan, he actually becomes partial to the devotee, right? When one turns to him, he actually becomes like, he's not equal. He takes special interest. And so it's saying that feature of God, the feature of Paramatma is manifested in the heart of everyone. But that feature of God, of Krishna, who becomes personally interested, really with affection, with eagerness, with intensity. Prabhupada writes, the Lord is always within the heart of the living being. That's Paramatma. But he becomes manifested by one's devotional service. This Krishna feature becomes manifested when one turns to him, when one serves. He goes on to say, purification of the heart by culture of knowledge or mystic yoga may be all right for the time being for an individual person. Like those, they have an effect on the heart. But it is like the cleansing of a small quantity of stagnant water by chemical processes. So he's going back to that analogy of the rain. You might have a small quantity of water, and through some kind of artificial process, you might purify that water of the mud that's in it. But rain is like falling down on all the water, and it doesn't matter. Everyone's affected by it. So he says, such clarification of water may stand for the time being, and the sentiments settle down. But by a slight agitation, everything becomes muddy. So he's saying, even if we're doing these other forms of yoga, we're kind of prone to kind of like slipping back into our material association, right? And our consciousness becoming muddy again. The idea is that devotional service, bhakti, to the Lord is the only method of cleansing the heart for good. It's the only one that brings us back to our original state of consciousness, right? Whereas other methods may be superficially good for the time being, there's a risk of becoming muddy again due to agitation of the mind. Devotional service to the Lord, bhakti, with specific attention for hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and always, is the best recommended method for liberation from the clutches of illusion, right? Our own endeavors are weak. It's like if I went around and tried to purify all the water of the mud, I could only accomplish so much. But the rain comes and it just takes care of everything, right? Widely, effectively. And that's what like bhakti is like. My own endeavors to control my mind, I might control it a little bit here and there. I might get it a little bit under, but then it's out of control. But if I hear Bhagavatam and that incarnation of Krishna enters in my ears, sits down on the lotus of my heart, purifies everything. It's like the rain. It's powerful, super powerful. And it's not only affecting like my muddy mind, but like it can affect everybody's muddy mind, right? It's all, all effective like that. I love this verse. I want to read it again because it's just such an, even read the previous one because they kind of go nicely together. And then we could read the next verse too. I would like to read tomorrow's, the next verse tomorrow again, because tomorrow is an important day because that's the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada.
Gotcha.
And I think the commentary and everything would be a nice one to read on that day. But text
disappearance. Disappearance if you're new to this, disappearance means the anniversary of their death,
passing away.
The passing away.
Yeah.
So with great souls, we never say died. We always say disappearance because
they're here. They're somewhere else now.
Yeah, they're somewhere else. Disappeared, basically.
Yeah. So text 4 said, persons who hear Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, enters into the heart of the self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Such great verses to keep in mind, always remember, treasure. And then this text 6, which is kind of the last of this kind of introductory section of this chapter. This is again Maharaj Parikshit speaking. He's on fire right now. He's been hearing, Shukadev Goswami describe Brahma speaking to Narada, and he's feeling it, right? He's feeling it. And so now he's speaking to his own guru or his own teacher, but he has such enthusiasm. He's saying a pure devotee of the Lord whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service never relinquishes the feet of Lord Krishna, for they fully satisfy him. And then another analogy, as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. Right? You go on a long journey, it's troubling, right? There's, trouble eating, trouble sleeping, maybe trouble staying healthy, other kind of troubles, and you finally reach home. There's such a feeling of warmth and satisfaction and shelter and so on. So it's saying we can find that, in one sense, everybody's looking for that in one way or another, because this journey through the material world is troubling, right? It's like a long journey.
It's a long journey, man.
It's troubling in so many ways. But that simply by hearing Bhagavatam, right, you can feel God. Again, I really like establishing the goal of yoga like this, that what am I concentrating on doing? What am I trying to do with my life? What am I trying to do with my words, with my actions, with how I relate with people, with how I engage, my mind, how I spend my time? For the Bhakti-yogi, the whole focus becomes, I want to purify the mind and the heart so Krishna sits there. Just like I have an altar, right? Like say I'm building a temple in my home, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to create the space in such a way that it becomes appropriate and suitable and pleasing for God to reside there. And that's what the Bhakti-yogi is trying to do with their mind and with their heart. When we say heart, in a sense, we mean mind, that part of the mind where what's most dear to us resides. And so I want to make that space so pure, right? So that the Lord is really satisfied to sit there, remain there, and radiate, that super purifying, powerful spiritual energy. That's my goal. I want God to be manifest in my heart. And so how am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by regularly and sincerely hearing Bhagavatam. It's the most effective and quick and powerful way to get the job done. I was, and while reading this, I can't help but think about that really beautiful verse. Prabhupada quotes the verse a lot, but from Brahma Samhita. You know what verse I'm thinking about, Raghu? Put you on the hot seat.
Give me a hint.
Well, we're talking about Krishna residing in the heart.
No.
Premanjana.
Premanjana Charita Bhakti Balochanena.
Yeah. Santasad Premanjana Charita Bhakti Balochanena. Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Valokayanti. Yang Shama Sundarama Chincha Guna Svarupam. Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is again Lord Brahma, right? In a state of total spiritual inspiration, reeling off just unbelievably beautiful and deep prayers, glorifying Govinda, glorifying Krishna. And he says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shama Sundara, right? Shama Sundara means that's Krishna with a beautiful complexion, right? Beautiful dark complexion. He is Shama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts. How do they see God in their own heart? With the eye of devotion. And what qualifies it as that? It's tinged with the salve of love. Right?
Now, a lot of times, in the old days, you used to put salves in the eyes.
Yeah.
Like a medicated ointment for your eyes, according to whatever disease you have, mixed with herbs. So how do you see Krishna in this world? Your eyes are smeared with the salve of love. What a beautiful poetic statement, huh?
Not fungus, right?
Not fungus. No fungus in the eyes. But it's true, because there are different goggles we wear. Just like if I have real estate goggles and I see a beautiful mountain, I think, I could build condos there. Or we have lust goggles, like, her, him, whatever. Right? Or you have greed goggles. What are the goggles that we're seeing the world? Because whatever goggles you're wearing, that's what you're going to see. And so how do you see Krishna? And Krishna's right there in front of our faces. But you need those goggles. You need the salve of love instead of the salve of greed, lust, anger, etc. Sometimes people have the salve of enemies. They think, people are out there to get
It's
me.
really a salve of fear, right?
It's a salve of mistrust, that people aren't trustworthy. All these. By the way, I also think it's good to notice what we have that isn't working with us. If it's anxiety, if it's a lack of trust, if it's a desire to finding fault with people on a regular basis, notice what's not working and really highlight those, circle them. By the way, this isn't me. And every time I drift there, I got to step away from there. Or else it's going to really cheat us out of our bhakti. And our bhakti can be very accelerated if we don't keep dipping back into these bad qualities that some of us, we've been cultivating them. We've been practicing them. But yeah, this is beautiful. That's a beautiful verse.
Want to hear a little, maybe wind it up here in some of the purport to that?
Yeah.
These are the purports in the Brahma Samhita by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Okay.
People say they're also from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father. It's hard to, whether Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was editing or whatever, but in any case, coming from these great souls. He says, the Shama Sundara form of Krishna in his inconceivable, simultaneous, personal and impersonal self-contradictory form. Right? He says the Shyamasundar form of Krishna is, in other words, it's that dark-skinned Krishna, the boy, right? Form of Krishna is his inconceivable, simultaneously personal and impersonal self-contradictory form. Everything comes from this form. True devotees see that form in their purified hearts under the influence of devotional trance. Right? If we just work on establishing Krishna within our heart through here in Bhagavatam, the day will come where we actually see that form in our heart. Right? The form Shyama is not the blue color visible in the mundane world. When we say Krishna is blue, it's not the blue that our blue. It's a whole different thing.
A whole different,
right? Whole different color. The form of Shyama is not the blue color visible in the mundane world, but is the transcendental variegated color affording eternal bliss and is not visible to the mortal eye. If you just see that color, you'll feel eternal bliss. Right?
wow.
On the
I don't even know what we're missing out on.
We don't know.
Colors.
Yeah. On a consideration of the trance of Vyasadeva, as in the shloka Bhakti-yogi Manasi, that was describing Vyasadeva's trance early in the Bhagavatam, it will be clear that the form of Sri Krishna is the full personality of Godhead, right? It's not part, like Ram is part, Vishnu is part, but the Shyamasundar form is full. Everything is in that form. It will be clear that the form of Sri Krishna is the full personality of Godhead and can only be visible in the heart of a true devotee, which is the only true seat in the state of trance under the influence of devotion. When Krishna manifested himself in Vraja, in Vrindavan, both the devotees and non-devotees saw him with his very eye, but only the devotees cherished him, eternally present in Vraja, as the priceless jewel of the heart. Nowadays, also the devotees see him in Vraja in their hearts. There's still yogis in Vrindavan right now seeing Krishna in their heart, right? Saturated with devotion, although they do not see him with their eyes. The eye of devotion is nothing but the eye of the pure, unalloyed spiritual self of the jiva, of the soul. The form of Krishna is visible to that eye in proportion to its purification by the practice of devotion. When the devotion of the neophyte reaches the stage of bhava bhakti, a certain level in one's advancement, the pure eye of that devotee is tinged with the salve of love by the grace of Krishna, which enables him to see Krishna face to face. The phrase "in their hearts" in this verse means Krishna is visible in proportion as their hearts are purified by the practice of devotion. The sum and substance of this shloka, of this verse, is that the form of Krishna, who is Shyamasundara, Shyamasundara means he has that beautiful dark complexion, Natavara means he's the best dancer, Murlidhara, the holder of the flute, Tribhanga, standing in his threefold bending way, is not a mental concoction. It's not something that we just put in our mind for some kind of meditational practice or something like that, right? But is transcendental and is visible with the eye of the soul of the devotee under trance, right? All right.
We did another show in the books. 110 people. 109 people. Oh, there we go.
108. 107.
Thanks for joining us. There's a bunch of people snuck in the door in the end. By the way, if you liked anything from the show, you just write it down. You take a photo of it with your phone, you post it, you tag us, and we repost it. You never know who needs a transcendental message today. Sometimes you could save a life with a good message.
Maybe something about fungicide.
Yeah. Hey, what's the song I've been listening to lately, Mara? Radhika's song?
Radhika Das, the one.
You put up that on the board. It's a great song.
Yeah.
Great
Hey, you got a man crush.
Seetaram.
You're in love. Just admit it.
Radhika's my man crush. Thanks for everybody joining us late in the game there. Eva. Lopamuja Goswami. Jai Shri Krishna. Now's our time. Oh, by the way, we're doing Sweet Baby Krishna. Speaking of beautiful Shama Sundar, we're doing Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. This podcast is donation-based, so if you want to support us, if you get some light from this, give us some love, support us at patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. We really appreciate it. It's welcome, needed, and thanks to everybody who are already there. Thanks for all the people running our Bhakti Recovery group. We appreciate that so much. If you're interested in that, that's also available. When's today's meeting, Mayor?
Today's meeting's actually canceled.
Today's meeting.
The men's group.
There you go.
Yeah. But Jeffrey Newberger is teaching asana today at 10 a.m.
Oh,
Jeffrey
wow.
Newberger, we love him.
Yeah.
Philadelphia area.
Philadelphia area.
Philadelphia area. Now's the time of transcendence.